Say goodbye to Sukuna and welcome Megumi. Jujutsu Kaisen, happy ending. The chapter begins with a conversation between Sukuna and Megumi's souls. After being hit by Yuji's black flash, Sukuna's soul seemed to be under threat. Because of this, Sukuna tried to make a last-ditch effort to break Megumi's spirit of life again. Initially, Sukuna questioned Megumi why he tried to come back to life after his body was taken over and his older sister was killed. Megumi had refused the help of his colleagues and ended up endangering the lives of other sorcerers. Even the figure of Yuji, whom he once saved, eventually triggered Sukuna to awaken and slaughter many people. So, Sukuna tried to incite Megumi that he had sinned too much and didn't deserve to live. Even if Megumi survives, his life will not run normally because he will forever be haunted by his regrets and sins. So, once again, Sukuna told Megumi to give up and go back to sleep. However, after his conversation with Yuji, Megumi's will to live has returned. Megumi, who had lost his spirit after his older sister's death, has now found a new reason to live. So even when Sukuna tries to provoke him again, Megumi remains firm in his resolve. Instead, Megumi mocks Sukuna, who appears desperate and unhinged due to his obsession with manipulating him. And because of that, Megumi concluded that Sukuna was on the verge of death. Sukuna does have a way to turn his soul into a curse object, but with Yuji's attack that rightly injures his soul, Sukuna's soul will end up dead if it is separated from Megumi's body. Moreover, Nobara's resonance attack also managed to weaken Sukuna even further. That is, after Sukuna's 19 fingers disappeared along with his soul, his last one would not have enough strength to accommodate that soul. And because of Sukuna's feelings of despair, Megumi could see how the Curse King could even be afraid of death. Before parting ways with Sukuna, Megumi said that from the beginning he didn't expect to return to a normal life. So even though his life from now on is full of twists and turns, Megumi still wants to get through it. Megumi has realized that in this world they live not only for themselves but also for others. Once again, Megumi intends to continue living for others. So after Sukuna's body was hit by the soul-splitting dismantle, resonance, and black flash in succession, his soul is now unable to take control of Megumi's body. As a result, when he was thrown out of Yuji's domain, Sukuna's soul left Megumi's body. This means that Sukuna no longer has a vessel to live in, and Megumi can return to freedom. After separating from the vessel, Sukuna's form is now fragmented and leaves only a small part of the curse. Yet, Yuji looked at him with pity, seeing that Sukuna would be scorched without a trace. However, Yuji gave him another chance. Yuji asked what Sukuna would do now. Yuji seemed to remind Sukuna that he had a chance to continue living by returning to Yuji's body and repenting. The opportunity given by Yuji is not only based on his compassion. Yuji sees Sukuna as a figure like himself, a figure born with a curse within him. The curse referred to here likely pertains to their strength. We know that both Sukuna and Yuji were born with strength above normal limits. Sukuna got his power thanks to eating his twin because, at that time, his mother, who was carrying him, was starving. Meanwhile, Yuji gained his power thanks to Kenjaku's experiments, who wanted to make him a vessel for Sukuna. With their strength, both Yuji and Sukuna could grow into monsters. According to Yuji, what kind of monsters they became depended solely on luck. After being born, the two lived completely different lives. Sukuna lived in an era full of bloodshed, so it's no wonder that with his strength, he grew into a monster who took many lives to be feared by many people, while Yuji was raised lovingly by his grandfather and slowly learned the value of human life. Because of that, Yuji considers himself luckier for having the opportunity to live like that. And in front of Sukuna now, Yuji seemed to offer himself to be a figure who would give Sukuna love. Yuji wants to see Sukuna get affection just like him, so Yuji wants to invite Sukuna back to live with someone without condemning others. Although other people rejected him as a figure who could hold Sukuna and accept him, Yuji was willing to live together with him. And that reason was because Yuji wanted to prove again to Sukuna that his idealism was wrong. But hearing Yuji's statement, Sukuna remained firm. He even praised Yuji's stupidity for pitying him to this extent. Because of Yuji's pity, Sukuna thought that it was just an insult. Finally, by mentioning Itadori Yuji's name, Sukuna emphasized his idealism to the end. Sukuna said that he would not be allowed to continue being belittled. So instead of changing his outlook on life and feeling humiliated, Sukuna prefers to die on the spot, because in the end, he is a curse. And that's the end of the King of Curses, Ryomen Sukuna. From birth to the eve of his death, Sukuna did not change his idealism at all and still maintained his principles. Not only Sukuna, an ending also occurred on another battlefield. And realizing that Sukuna had lost, Uraume told Hakari that this was the end. At first, Hakari thought that the word was meant for Sukuna, but by freezing herself, Uraume said that this would also be the end of her life because after Sukuna was gone, she also had no more reason to live. But as if to give a defense, Uraume said that the reason the sorcerers could win was just luck, because what caused Sukuna to lose at this time was because he had to rely on a vessel. So, if this battle had happened 1,000 years ago, Sukuna would have won. So, Uraume wanted to emphasize that the sorcerers' win was not because they were strong, but hearing the word lucky, Hakari was praised. He called it his greatest compliment, and by stating that it was also true, at the same time, Uraume's body finally froze into ice. And this is the end of the big and long war in Shinjuku. And after the end of this battle, we return to see where Megumi has finally regained consciousness. And once awake, Megumi was surprised to see Yuji and Nobara busy preparing a surprise. Nobara wants to surprise Megumi that she has returned. Nobara, who was sure that the other students thought she had died, wanted to see her friend's surprised expressions. Yuji himself admitted that he had shed tears when he saw Nobara's resonance, but because Megumi, who was also in Sukuna's body at that time, seemed to have realized that Nobara had returned. So even if they make a surprise now, obviously, they won't be surprised. Well, after the 3 first-year students gathered, Yuji gave them a letter from Gojo, but Yuji said that he didn't get it because Gojo had told him directly. And after opening the letter, Nobara was surprised. She says that the content of Gojo's letter to her was just information about her mother's whereabouts. Although Nobara claimed she never cared about that info, Megumi suddenly laughed when he saw the contents of the letter. This makes Yuji and Nobara clearly curious, and once they read it, it says that his father is gone because Gojo killed him. And with a picture of his silly face, Gojo also apologized. At first, Megumi's expression there made her 2 friends surprised. But Megumi also seemed not to care too much about the fate of her father and was more focused on Gojo's silly behavior. Because we know that Gojo has been acting more as a guardian, or it can be concluded that Gojo is more concerned than his father. Well, suddenly, Nobara remembered that the first graders were told to meet Maki. Nobara said that they had to do something to help Yuta. That's when we see Maki, Inumaki, Panda, Kusakabe, Momo, and Miwa. They walk to the same location. But something unexpected happened when they headed to the room. A shout was heard from behind them stating that, "Yuta, you Sonova bitch!" But whose voice was it, and what happened to Yuta at this time? But before it was proven who he was, chapter 268 ended here. A chapter that closed the big war in Shinjuku, as well as the end for Sukuna and Uraume. With the completion of Yuji and Sukuna's battle, it finally became a sign that it was over about the idealism between the two. And until the last point, Sukuna refused to recognize Yuji's idealism. Sukuna prefers to die rather than live in peace as suggested by Yuji, because basically Sukuna recognizes that he is a curse. As a true fighter, Sukuna has recognized Yuji as a strong opponent. That's why, in the end, he called Yuji by his full name. And with the end of Sukuna, there may also be those who think that the closing scene is too short. We are not presented with a longer conversation between Sukuna and Yuji, especially about Sukuna's defense of his idealism. We also don't get a further flashback about Sukuna's past, such as his relationship with Tengen and Kenjaku. The reason is, so far we only have time to explore Sukuna's character and past through monologues and dialogues. And this might make the end of Sukuna's character feel anticlimactic for some readers. But I also quite understand Gege's intention to give the strongest figure an ironic ending by showing the saddest condition in the form of a small curse that looks like a lump of flesh. With this, we can see a more decisive reversal of the situation where Yuji has been above and beyond Sukuna. Apart from Sukuna, this chapter also has some other interesting things. First, about the contents of Gojo's letter. And for Megumi and Nobara, Gojo both told them about the condition of their parents. From here, I think that maybe Gojo also told Yuji about his parents. So maybe in the next chapter we will finally see Yuji's views on the mystery of his birth to his relationship with Kenjaku. Because one thing that is a bit unfortunate about this series is that there is no interaction between Yuji and Kenjaku after the Shibuya incident arc. The next interesting thing is about Yuta's condition. Previously, it was explained that one of the possibilities that will happen to Yuta is that he must be forced to live forever in Gojo's body. And if Yuta is still alive now, that possibility seems to be happening. But the question is, what is happening to Yuta and whose voice is it? So for some reason, Gojo and Yuta's souls seem to be trapped in the same body, and the voice at the end belonged to Gojo. But I, who see that Gojo's character has been neatly closed and his soul has gone to the other side, disagree a bit. So in conclusion, whose voice is it? And will this be a happy ending for the Jujutsu Kaisen manga? I want to hear what you think, guys. Like and sub. I'm Nim. See you in the next episode. Bye bye, Bakayaro.